working with victims, like if somebody wanted to vote for you and they see this before Tuesday, could you say honestly that your goal is the opposite of the goal of what we see of these crazy DAs who are literally letting everyone off and not prosecuting? Like, you're a prosecutor, so like you're going to prosecute, right? Like,
I'm 100% going to enforce
no wiggle
the law.
room. No, you're just going to use the law and just put it to people who break it.
Yes, and I'm going to, I believe in criminal justice reform, but never at the expense of victims, especially victims of violent crime.
Right.
And if any of your listeners want to go to my website, GinaFromMaricopa.com, go under where it says about Gina and blogs, you'll have actually a video from one of my victims from like 17 years ago who reconnected and wanted to do a video, who's worked with me this entire time, where we have, and she could tell her story of my service to victims, and I've always loved standing up for victims. I believe we can even do more. We need to support victims in the post-conviction relief portion as well, in the clemency process. So there's a lot of areas that I can't wait to implement with laws and to push to help victims even more. But this prevention thing, I think you asked me and I didn't, this nonprofit that I started.
Yes, this is Speak Up Stand Up, that?
Yeah.
Yes, Speak Up Stand Up, Save a Life. So tell us about that.
Yeah, and Speak Up Stand Up Save a Life started because we have to respond to every homicide scene that occurs when you're in your area, and I manage the Northwest Valley, so there was a tragedy at a local school, and every shooting that's happened across this country, there are missed warning signs on social media.
That's what we keep learning every time.
And so when we started to say, why could we get kids to speak up and say that somebody's threatening someone else, and instead of, in this case, giving one of the individuals the means to commit the crime, telling a parent that could have stopped the whole thing. So we decided we would come together and create a program called Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life to empower our youth to know what the universal warning signs are in their classmates, and get them to speak up and to tell a trusted adult, a parent, a school resource officer, so we can get them help. And while we were going through this process, we started tackling issues of mental health and suicide, because we were losing one child to suicide every 3 days. We discovered how many kids were losing with overdoses and fentanyl.
3 days.
And
crazy.
so, the youngest was 10 when we first started. So we looked around and we thought, all these tragedies, they're the exact same warning signs. So what if we educated every parent, teacher, Rotary Club, everyone, of what the universal warning signs are, and we had resources available to get them help, we could save lives now.
And what area is your program, what area is it being utilized in Arizona?
It was grades 6 through 12 of schools. It's
statewide?
Yes, it was statewide. Free conference. We had a lot of volunteers.
I saw that you had a free conference every year. A lot of people came.
And it was just with law enforcement, cities, just trying to empower that message, dealing with vaping and eating disorders, and everything was the same type. And our last one was connections, because one connection in someone's life can save their life, just one person.
It's true.
So we are trying to empower people to be difference makers. And the exciting thing is it connects right into our criminal justice system, because the individuals that have mental health specifically, they self-medicate with illegal drugs, and that is the at-risk population that ends up in our homeless population and our criminal justice system. So it was exciting to work across with defense attorneys and law enforcement and everybody to try to break down those silos to deal with an issue that has saved lives.
That's
and so
great.
we've grown in 6 years from 850 all the way up to 10,000 people attended it at one conference.
That's amazing. And who's running that program? Do you have somebody in place installed that you've kind of helped? You started the program and then you passed it on, obviously, because you're doing a lot of other things. So, where can somebody where can they find the program? Because I know a lot of kids and parents are in need of help these days, especially. So let's start with there. Where can they find the program?
It's under speakstandsave.com, and we're going to have our next one. We're moving it back to the fall, so it's not going to be till October 2023. So we have some time, and then we're looking at multiple locations across Arizona, a one-day conference where all of the youth can come together for something positive and realize that they themselves can be that difference maker in somebody's life.
Wow, so that's a great program. I've been here 23 years. My sons are 20 and 17, so they've been kids up until now. I've never heard of that program. And honestly, probably could have benefited from it. So thanks for sharing that. Even though I can't use it now, whoever's listening, I hope you guys will. We're going to put all the information up later, because these are important factors. You know, we always think we hear about the shooting after the shooting, and nobody really ever wants to talk about what the kids were doing for the last 5 years before they picked up a gun. I think it's kind of crazy. So I'm a big law and order person. I'm a big go to jail person if you do something wrong. And so I'm glad to hear you're kind of tackling both sides for the kids to help them before they grow into adults who just really have behaviors that they really can't help at that point. And then they're just in the system, which is necessary too, because you have to deal with it when they're adults, and we can't give them timeouts.
It's that whole thing of preventing tragedies where we can. So that and also because down the road, if they commit the violent crime, then it doesn't matter. I'm sorry if you have a mental health and you used illegal drugs. We're going to take care of the victim, and you have to be held accountable.
Right.
So it's trying to do both. It's saving lives now, but preventing. Hopefully preventing some future tragedies and one family from not having to go through this awful thing that occurs with these homicides. When they're always mental health and substance abuse, and they're so connected that we have to look at it and try to address it the best we can early on.
So it's nice to have kind of a holistic approach. Even being all law and order like you have been actually for your career, but we do need to look outside. And again, I'm all for prison and all for sentencing, but our poor kids have grown up with no anchor, and in many cases, and a sinking ship pretty much all the time. So I do want to ask you, I know you're short on time, so I'm going to, and that's okay. It's okay if you are. I mean, you're super busy. So you came over here, you didn't know me, and you came over here on the 3 days before the primary, so I totally appreciate your schedule. I do just want to ask, so I have some friends in Arizona, and all the groups of people talk together, chat. I don't really do a lot of research as far as, I'm not reading a lot. I've got 2 jobs, I've got 2 kids, I go to school full time. So a lot of people send me stuff, like, did you hear about this? So I just want to ask you, because it came up the other day in one of my groups, and I've said, I'm going to ask her. So there's some negative stuff about you. Not a lot. Like, I really hadn't heard it, actually. I don't hear anything really negative about you. But other people did, and they're like, well, when you have Gina on, are you having her on? Can you ask her to address some of the stuff? And I said, yeah, I don't even know what it is. What is it? Share it with me. What have you heard about you?
There's only 2 things that people have attacked me on, and I'd love to talk about both of them. Because they're both, I guess, when you don't have a lot that people can attack, then they make up things. And one of them, particularly when I talked about that Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life conference, somebody in an anonymous article on The Independent tried to say that it's a gender unity conference. And I thought, what are you talking about? It was a school shooting. It was a murder-suicide. We've been on PBS. We've had every station that's covered it. We've had hundreds of law enforcement attending. We have 500 volunteers.
Right.
There's been so many show me one video that would ever show we ever covered that topic, because we never covered that topic. It is trying to empower kids,
like an enrichment,
to say something. Yeah, because we've told kids to mind their own business, not be a tattletale. Snitches get stitches. Children should be seen and not heard. And then, is there any doubt that or concern why people don't say anything in every school shooting? Because we've given them mixed messages from the time they're born. So can we break that tattletale mentality? That same mentality that I want people to be witnesses in criminal offenses that won't, because they're afraid. They'll call anonymous numbers, but they don't want to be a witness to it because they're afraid. So we're talking about creating generational change and getting people to care enough to actually speak up and to stand up for their fellow classmates. Right. We've never covered that topic of gender, transgender equality. We've never dealt with CRT. So it floored me that was even said. And then they said, because all the resources we listed, when we said we want to teach resources and we wanted resources available, At the time, 6 years ago when we started, we made every suicide resource in Arizona that's free. We wanted it to be free for families, was listed. And one of them listed was an LGBTQ suicide group.
Okay.
And because of that, somebody started this rumor.
And
we're
they
like,
morphed having a specific hotline for a specific group of a class of people, or group of, it's not a class of people, a group of people who've designated themselves to have a line dedicated so that they feel comfortable in their despair to know that when they call that LGBTQ suicide line, that they're going to be responded to properly and with care and concern, not because you were pushing some kind of LGBTQ agenda on all the kids.
And it was one of many resources. So they were all suicide numbers down there. Yeah. And the crazy thing is, if we're trying to help save lives and make sure children see another day, the fact of the matter is the category that has the highest suicide is the LGBTQ community. Right. So to have one resource for a parent to go on and to connect if the parent felt that was appropriate, we didn't see anything wrong with that. It's just like a police need to respond to all houses, not just conservative houses. We're trying to help all kids who need help. And so it's interesting to me that one thing was drilled down and taken,
widely.
And then
they made it everything.
Everything. And every time I tried to respond, the goalposts kept moving. And the most crazy thing to me is I know, and most disappointing to me, is that when I see that my opponent spent so much money on Google searches and everything else, and you can Google Gina Godbehere prosecutor, Gina Godbehere County Attorney, Speak, Stand, Save, you're going to find probably 100 articles on me.
Right.
The first one that's popping up is this unknown article from the Independent, because somebody's paying to have that search.
Yeah, we talked about that on the last show with Jana. The Google search that you guys do, the 1, 2, and 3 pages at the bottom, there's these little numbers that nobody knows about if you're new to Google. But if you go to the 3rd page and behind, that's where all the real news is. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd page, and they might even be at 4th page now. It used to be just 1 and 2 pages. You have to get to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th pages to actually find legit articles that are just from everybody around town, not just the people they highlight on page 1, because those are the stories that they put out there. Yeah. So
they pay to do. So
up top.
It floors me that somebody's paying to have this false article out there.
And have they spoken to you, the Independent? Did they?
No, they never even called me. I tried to do a comment, and that's still there. It's an anonymous article, and I would just urge everybody. I met at the West Valley Republicans Club. We brought all our curriculum there. We let everybody see it. I've been willing to open up my curriculum to let people review and see. I'm not going to get in these fights in Twitter. This is silly on these couple words. Yeah. You want to come see it, because this program has saved lives. And the crazy thing is, we also had our YouTube page hacked. I mean, we run a conference that impacted 5,000 to 10,000 people every single year for 6 years, and under $100,000 is our whole expenses. We don't have a lot of money.
So you're good at budget issues.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of money. We have a lot of volunteers. We have a lot of people helping out, and somebody hacked our website. So that's, to me, the most disappointing thing, is that you're going to harm an organization that has helped and saved lives for kids.
To propagandize your message.
You want to fight me. Yeah. And I would tell you this, I've tried 100 felony jury trials. I've won all but one. Only one defendant has walked on me. I've never had a bar complaint. I've never had a case reversed on appeal. We've never been sued for anything that I've ever done with the county. I've supervised hundreds of attorneys. There's never been an issue in my supervision. So that's what you're going to attack me on, to try to do something above and beyond my work in the county and trying to save lives, shows to me they're desperate. Yes. And it's sad, because they'll never be able to attack me on this in a general. If anything, the schools it's going to make me the more difficult one to beat in a general. Exactly. So this is even coming either from my Democratic opponent, who's worried about facing me, or my Republican opponent. And either way, it's just sad. It's really sad that these
because it affects the kids you're trying to help. And I always find it interesting when they attack people, and then you have a legitimate way of explaining things, that people can actually look into these organizations to see what Gina's been up to and judge for yourself what she said is true or not. But it's all there for you to check on Google, unfortunately. So that they are the people who always say, you're Republican. They don't appeal to all the people. They don't want to help all the groups. They're against X, Y, and Z and the LGBTQ letters too. When in fact, we see that you're actually the most inclusive in your organization's mission and trying to help every child and family, regardless of whatever they designate themselves to be. And so it's the exact opposite. So I like to always highlight that, because sometimes people just like gloss over it. And I think it's important that we really like highlight that that's the real thing happening. And then what was the other negative? You said there was two.
You know, the other one that people like to say, and this is my first introduction into politics, and I don't always talk about it. So I have almost every single law enforcement, and my and like some of my opponents, individuals will say, but what about Goodyear? And I'll tell you, Goodyear's one of the only ones that I didn't get, and people say why, and it was my introduction to politics. I was completely blindsided. With Goodyear, they're a small organization. They had a last minute, I think I already had Phoenix, and my opponent had just been appointed the day before. All of a sudden, I got this last minute thing that Goodyear's having a meeting. The meeting got moved to 2, so I run over there, and I was very surprised to see my opponent sitting there with a sergeant who used to work at Goodyear, who she had just hired at the county attorney's office. And I'm thinking, well, that's really interesting that she's there on that short a notice, because I just got notice short, and it turns out that they did a straight up vote in the room. The room was packed with sex crimes attorneys detectives that she had worked with.
Okay.
She knew the process, and at that room, it was portrayed that Gina was mean to patrol because she put a list together complaining about their police reports. And I didn't know about this. It was spurred out. Well, what about Goodyear? You know, and so so the council and everyone's like, "What the heck?" We called up and say, "What happened?" And they go, "Well, they said you were mean." So her people said I was mean to the patrol officers. They didn't ask me about it. And here's the kicker. I was asked to put the list together by the chief of police because it was for training purposes.
So you were doing your job.
They're all brand new attorneys, and there were problems, and we were trying to fix it so that they didn't make the same errors on more serious cases that could
Right.
like blow up on them in a jury trial on a violent crime down below. You can't just have conclusory comments. You can't say somebody's recklessly driving. You have to say who, what, where, when,
Right.
how. You have to explain these things. And so I was asked to outline who they were, who the sergeant was, the information, and the lieutenants wanted a copy. I did not want to give them the names because it was supposed to be for training.
Sure.
They asked me to give them the names, and that's what was used of I'm mean because I didn't support them. And it was, and I could just tell you, it wasn't all Goodyear. It was the few people in the room. Most of them didn't even have notice and didn't even have a vote. I don't even want to talk about it because I love Goodyear. They've been so good to me. They wanted to keep the job open for me if I wanted to go back, which I'm very blessed with. But I couldn't let them do that because the people there needed to go forward.
Sure.
But the mayor supports me, the council, the chief supports me, all the chiefs support me. I have tremendous support in Goodyear. And the only thing I could tell you is that it was sleazy. I didn't like how it was done because that's misleading. That wasn't even honest. And I equated, it was almost like a Tanya Harding. They tried to cap me at the knees the day after the appointment.
That's a throwback reference.
Yeah,
I'm from Oregon, so she was an Oregonian.
They tried to cap me at the knees by coming and sneaking in and getting that. And the only thing I could tell you is since then, I've gotten 10 of 11 endorsements. The only endorsement I didn't get is the state one, which, I mean, Ducey and the whole team backed Rachel, so it's not surprising I didn't get the state one. But I got every other one.
Not everybody gets everyone. I mean, this is how things go. Some people endorse one, some people endorse the other. But what that tells me, in my voter view, is when I heard Gina explain this for the first time to me, is that she was doing her job, and a teeny tiny little faction, which seems to be always the case in all these instances of impropriety, and they did that, she said that, or she hurt somebody's feelings. It's always a small group of people, whatever the agency is, government, high, low, state, federal, whatever, whistleblower, anonymous, all these things you mentioned today seem to be the same. So my point through this primary was do your homework all the time, go to every meet and greet you can. They're fun too, and educational, and you get to meet people firsthand. They are right here talking to you, even if they don't know you. That's what they're there for. And there's no excuse not to know who your candidates are, because you can also Google everything they've said ever, and stop listening to what people tell you they said on the news or the radio or your TV, whatever you subscribe to. Just go and listen to them for yourself, and don't be lazy. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you explaining both of those things in detail, because I really didn't know.
You know, and I would love for people to say, talk to anyone at Goodyear. If there was something there, it would have come out by now. The reason there's not come out because they're embarrassed by it, and I don't want to make it a big deal because I love the chief, I love everybody there, and it's just unfortunate because it was very few people.
No, it is.
Very few.
So
it's not
no bar
representative.
complaints in how many years totally practicing?
26 years.
So 26 years. So there's a thing called avo.com. You can go on, you can see all about attorneys and learn their records or look at the state bar records. There's a lot of attorneys with a lot of bar complaints against them, I assure you. So to not have any bar complaints as an attorney, just in general, in the attorney world, is kind of unheard of in 2022, certainly.
Yeah.
So if you've dodged that bullet, so to speak, it's, that says a lot too to me as a voter, because not many attorneys do.
Yeah, I think the only even letter I had one time is my attorney conspired my defense attorney conspired against me, and if the prosecutor knew about it, she's guilty too. That was like the worst one ever said
like
about
complicit.
me.
Complicit. Okay.
So it's like it's fascinating, but there's I could tell you I've always been one of the hardcore prosecutors in that office too, but I have respect of the defense. I have respect across the aisle because I always treated people fairly.
Right.
I always told them why I was given the sentence that I gave them, because our job is to be a fair administrator of justice.
Right.
Tell me I'm wrong. This is why your client deserves this. If you have something to be able to
Back it
convince
up.
me,
Yeah.
I'll listen to it.
So that's also important, that you're using laws and reason in making decisions about everybody's lives, especially your agency workers, because sometimes it seems like people are just randomly making random decisions out of emotional negative or positive feelings toward whoever they're dealing with. And there seems to be in our court system here in Arizona for sure, I know for a fact, in civil, in family court for sure, in juvenile court as well, I can attest to it. There's these emotional choices based on maybe how you're feeling that day. I don't know what they're basing them on, but they're definitely not on the law for a fact, I can assure you of that. Because I read a lot of our statutes and they were not following them at all in my hearings. So I'm glad to hear of that. I think everybody will be. I have to ask you a fun question now that I hammered you, which it was a pretty light hammering, right? Like a little tapping. Was it like just a little like tap? Godbehere. I heard somebody the other day across the room was like, "Is that your real name, Godbehere?" I mean, of course it is.
Yes.
Like, who's making that up? What's the just tell everybody where it comes from, just so they know. It's an interesting name.
You know, it's funny because growing up, I was raised, I'm still a practicing Catholic, and so the nuns and priests always loved the name, and they always said, you should have been named May. And I thought, well, can you imagine if I was named May Godbehere, people would really think that I made up the name. But no, it's my
That's
maiden
great.
name. I kept it for work purposes.
Sure.
I used my Mary name outside of work at the church and in my school, but I always thought it was a great. When you have that name, it's hard to switch. And my married name is Thomas, and so it was
Kinda
just
sets
a
you
big
apart, for
difference.
sure,
It does
versus Thomas.
And I always had violent gang members and stuff, so I always wanted to kind of have that separation for a long period
Sure.
of time, being a mom. But my victims loved the name too, and it gave them peace. And so I knew I couldn't lose the name from the very beginning. When every victim I ever had just fell in love with it and felt that it was meant to be. I was meant to be their prosecutor. It gave them comfort. And I'm a religious person too, so the name was always special to me, to try to live up to my name. It's a
Right.
hard name to live up to, but it's
think
what I
so.
try to do, that God is in my words and actions every day.
Amazing.
I believe that. I try my best to make that happen. But for the fun fact of Godbehere is English. We've been in the United States since the Revolutionary War, and if you go and look in England, there's a number of Godbeheres in England, and there's two potential meanings for my name. So I'm going to tell you
Okay,
both of them.
please.
One of them is the religious one. They believe at the time of Jesus, there was a time where in his travels, he went to England, and he was in England for a while. So they said God was here. God was there for a while. We're praying for when he's here again. So God be here again.
Wow.
Type of thing. That's one possibility.
Okay.
The second possibility is there's a street in Germany that's spelled the exact same way, and I heard one interpretation saying it is just possible it could mean good beer here.
Oh, yeah, okay. So,
So-
half the people listening will appreciate the godly version. The other half will appreciate the pub version. So we should
I'd say we're a
reach
winner
everybody.
either way.
You are a winner either way. That's right. That crosses all the lines. So thank you. Well, thanks for sharing that stuff because, these little fun facts, everybody hears your speeches, which are good.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good. Actually, that's why I actually asked you on after I heard you at the house because I was like, wow, her speech is really good. It's really fiery. It sounds very passionate, like true passionate, not reading passionate, out of practice. And that was also why I asked you to be on, because when I heard you, I just couldn't believe that you were my Laura, the family that I knew who used to be my client. And I was really impressed. I mean, everybody in the family is really quite accomplished, actually. The kids too, Alicia, and they're all accomplished, both sides of the family. Yeah. So I appreciate you telling all of us that. And I want to highlight too, her organization it's www.speakstandsave. It's .com or .org?
It's .com. And you're right. I did co-found it with two other women, and we have an executive director. We have one person who's on staff who just gets a tiny little stipend that helps lead that organization. And so we're always looking for volunteers and ideas.
So
of
get
how
on
to
the
make that
website
better.
and take a look at it, and maybe put your email in there so they can contact you if you're willing to help out with this organization to help our kids of Arizona. That would be a really valuable thing to do too. So we're going to put her website up, but say it out loud for them to find for campaign.
GinaForMaricopa.com.
Is it FOR?
FOR, Gina for Maricopa, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to put that up too later. And I just want to say thank you for being here. We've kept you a long time. I appreciate that because I know that you've got 1,000 things to do probably tonight. It's been eye-opening for me, and I love hearing from our candidates. I learn something new every single time I talk to them, and I'm glad I voted for you the other day.
Thank you.
So this reinforces my choice. And I'll tell you later why it was easy. I'll tell you. Sometimes I don't want to say everything out loud because, I mean, there's just no need, But I do have a little story for you. And I hope we see you again after you win on August 2nd. Hope you'll join us.
I would be honored to. And if any of your viewers have any questions, they can just email me at my website, and I will answer them all weekend.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to see you maybe around town, and get out and vote August 2nd. It's a few days. There's early polling. Put in your address in maricopa.gov. They will show you where you can vote, and please do so by August 2nd. And don't drop in the boxes because all kinds of things can happen with that situation, as we already know. I don't have to explain it, but come to Tempe tomorrow, and I'm going to put that information up. They're going to be explaining some of what already has happened. So use your blue and black ballpoint pens, and it takes about 5 minutes, and your decision for 5 minutes will last several years, so it's kind of worth the 5 minutes. If you spend any time that day doing anything important, vote in person. And we'll see you again, hopefully celebrating, and we'll bring it back on. So this is American Perspective with Patriot Mom 007. Please check me out on YouTube, where this will be posted, probably in 2 parts. And subscribe if you like what you see, and we'll be back again.
Thank you.